Hey guys, and welcome back. Tonight, we're stepping into a world that was part social network, part business hub, part health spa, and part grimy, noisy, chaotic public pool. We're visiting a place as vast as a cathedral, but dedicated not to a god, but to the simple, daily act of getting clean. The magnificent and often misunderstood Roman baths. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what we do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see the global community we're building. All right, find a comfortable spot. Let the noise of the modern world fade away, and let's step back in time through the great bronze doors together. Imagine you are a Roman citizen in the 2nd century AD, in the heart of the empire. Your name is Lucius, and you are a potter. The day's work is done. The heat of the kiln has been replaced by the cooling afternoon air, and your body aches with the familiar fatigue of labor. Like thousands of your fellow Romans, from the wealthiest senator to the humblest legionary, you turn your steps toward the grandest building in your district, the Thermae. Even from several streets away, it dominates the skyline. It is less a building and more a man-made mountain of brick, travertine, and marble, its high, vaulted roofs and soaring archways dwarfing the tenement buildings and shops that huddle in its shadow. The sounds of the city, the rattle of iron-rimmed cartwheels on stone, the shouts of vendors selling everything from sausages to sandals, the constant hum of a million lives being lived, begin to recede as you approach. They are replaced by a different sound, a low, pleasant murmur that spills from the great open arches of the baths, the sound of a city at leisure. You walk up the wide stone steps, joining a river of other people flowing towards the entrance. You see men in fine white togas, their faces serene, followed by a retinue of slaves. You see soldiers in their off-duty tunics, their muscular arms covered in tattoos and scars from distant campaigns. You see common men like yourself, their faces still showing the weariness of the day's work, seeking a few hours of relief. At the grand entrance, you approach the doorman, the Ostiarius. He is a large, bored-looking man who sits on a stool, collecting the entrance fee. You reach into your small leather pouch and pull out the smallest coin in the Roman world, a single quadrans. It is a tiny, insignificant piece of copper, worth less than a loaf of cheap bread. You hand it to him. He drops it into a wooden box, already filled with thousands of others just like it, and gives you a curt nod. You are in. This tiny transaction is one of the pillars of Roman society. The baths were not an exclusive club for the rich. They were a deeply democratic institution. This minuscule entrance fee, subsidized by the emperor or wealthy local patrons, ensured that nearly every Roman citizen, no matter how poor, could afford the daily luxury of the bath. It was seen not as a privilege, but as a fundamental right of being Roman. It was a place where, in theory, the social strata of the city could dissolve in the steam. You step past the doorman, through the great bronze doors, and into the complex proper. The shift in atmosphere is instantaneous. You have left the hot, dusty, chaotic world of the street and entered a cool, echoing, cavernous space. The air is immediately humid, carrying the scent of damp stone, warm water, and the faint, pleasant aroma of the scented oils used by the bathers. High above, vaulted ceilings create a sense of immense space, and the sound of hundreds of conversations, combined with the splashing of water, creates a constant echoing roar. You are standing in a grand columned hall, a sort of central lobby. To your left and right, you see entrances to other chambers. You see men wrapped in linen towels walking with purpose. You see statues of gods and past emperors looking down at you with blank marble eyes. You see intricate mosaics on the floor, depicting scenes from mythology. Hercules wrestling a lion, Neptune riding his chariot of seahorses. This is not just a building, it is a statement, a declaration of Roman power, artistry, and the profound importance placed on the daily life of its citizens. Your journey, however, has just begun. Before you can experience the pleasures of the water, you must first pass through the necessary social and physical rituals. You follow the crowd, moving towards the noise and steam of the first great chamber, the changing room. The first step in becoming clean is to make yourself vulnerable. You follow the flow of the crowd through a wide archway and step into the apoditarium, the great changing room. The immediate impression is one of overwhelming, echoing noise. The high vaulted ceilings that make the space feel so grand also turn it into an echo chamber. The shouts of men, the laughter of boys, and the slapping of wet sandals on the mosaic floor all bounce off the marble walls, creating a constant roaring din. The air is warm and thick with steam, carrying the mingled scents of human sweat and the expensive scented oils used by the wealthy. All around you, in a scene of democratic nudity, are Romans of every shape, age, and social standing. A gaunt, wiry man with the weathered skin of a sailor undresses next to a portly merchant whose pale belly hangs over his loincloth. You see the powerful, muscular bodies of young soldiers next to the stooped, frail frames of old men. You find an empty space on a long, continuous stone bench that runs along the wall. Above the bench are rows of small, open niches carved into the stone, the loculi. This is where you will store your worldly possessions. You fold your tunic and place it, along with your worn leather sandals, into one of these small compartments. As you do, a familiar low-level anxiety begins to prickle at you. You look around and confirm the most dangerous feature of this public space. None of the lockers have doors, let alone locks. The public baths, for all their benefits, were a thief's paradise. These professional criminals, the fures balneari, were a constant and well-documented menace of Roman life. They were masters of their craft, blending in with the crowds, waiting for the perfect moment to snatch a fine toga, a pair of expensive shoes, or, if they were truly lucky, a pouch of coins left carelessly in a fold of clothing. Being robbed at the baths was a common complaint. A humiliating experience that left the victim not only poorer, but forced to make a shameful, naked journey home through the city streets. The problem was so widespread that Roman legal texts contained specific laws dealing with bathhouse theft, and archaeologists have unearthed numerous curse tablets from sacred springs, where victims would appeal to the gods for supernatural revenge. One famous tablet from the Roman baths in Bath, England, beseeches the goddess Sulis to pursue a list of stolen goods, including 2 gloves and a tunic, and demands that the goddess not allow the thief sleep or health until the items are returned. This ever-present danger gave rise to a very specific occupation, the capsarius. All around the room you see them, young, bored-looking slaves, whose only job for the entire afternoon is to sit on a small stool in front of their master's chosen niche and guard his belongings. A wealthy man's status was not only displayed by the fineness of his clothes, but by the very fact that he had a personal slave to watch them. You, a simple potter, have no such luxury. Your best defense is to choose a niche that is high up and in a well-lit area, and to hope for the best. Once undressed, wearing only a simple linen loincloth known as a subligaculum, you are ready to begin the process. But you do not head for the water. In the Roman mind, the body must first be prepared for the cleansing ritual through exertion. You walk through another wide archway, leaving the steamy interior behind, and step out into the bright, open air of the palaestra, the exercise yard. The sound here changes from echoing chatter to grunts of effort and the thud of bodies. The palaestra is a large, open courtyard, often with a sandpit in the center. surrounded by a covered colonnade to provide shade. Here, you see Romans engaging in a variety of sports. Two powerfully built men are locked in a wrestling match in the sand, their bodies glistening with oil as they grapple for dominance. A group of soldiers are lifting heavy carved stone dumbbells, or halteres, their muscles straining. Others are fencing with wooden swords, practicing their footwork and strikes. The purpose of all this activity was not simply recreation. It was a key part of the bathing philosophy. By exercising vigorously, a Roman would work up a deep sweat, which was believed to open the pores and prepare the body for the deep cleaning to come. You are not a soldier or a professional athlete, so you join a less intense game popular with common men. A simple game of catch with a soft ball or pila stuffed with feathers. For 20 minutes, you move about the courtyard, your body warming up, the sun on your skin, a light sweat forming on your brow. You have now properly prepared yourself. You have honored the sequence of the ritual. Leaving the dust and noise of the palestra behind, you head back into the main building, ready to finally enter the warmth of the baths themselves. You leave the bright, dusty world of the palestra behind, your body buzzing with the pleasant ache of exercise and coated in a healthy sheen of sweat. You re-enter the main bath complex, moving through another arched doorway into a space where the atmosphere changes immediately. This is the tepidarium, the warm room. The heat here is not the oppressive, direct heat of the sun, nor the searing heat of the furnace you will soon face. It is a gentle, encompassing warmth that radiates up from the heated floors and seems to bleed from the very walls, a product of the ingenious hypocaust system. The air is humid, but not yet steamy, carrying the scent of warm marble and expensive scented oils. The frantic energy of the exercise yard and the chaotic bustle of the changing room are gone, replaced by a low, civilized hum of conversation. This room was the bath's central nervous system, its primary social hub. Unlike the noisy palestra or the intense caldarium, its moderate temperature allowed for extended conversation. It was a network of influence conducted in a state of relaxed, semi-nude equality, where a man's worth was measured more by his words and the clients who attended him than by the quality of his toga. The Roman concept of odium, or civilized leisure, was born in rooms like this. It was not simple idleness. It was the productive use of free time for self-improvement, for business, and for the cultivation of social bonds that held the empire together. You see men of all ages reclining on long, curved marble benches that are themselves heated from below. They talk in low, serious tones, their voices echoing softly in the vaulted chamber. A group of old men, their bodies scarred from decades of military campaigns, are having a heated but friendly debate about the tactics at the Battle of Actium, using their fingers to draw maps on the misty surface of the marble. Two younger men, their bodies the picture of athletic health, are gossiping about the latest chariot races at the Circus Maximus, complaining about a favored driver who lost them a significant wager. You find an empty spot on a marble bench. The stone is impossibly, wonderfully warm against your skin. You lean back, close your eyes, and let the gentle heat seep into your tired muscles. The sweat you worked up in the palestra now begins to flow more freely, opening every pore. This room is a carefully engineered pause, a crucial intermediary step designed to acclimatize the body for the more extreme temperatures to come. You rest here for a long while, listening to the murmur of the empire at leisure, feeling the day's anxieties begin to melt away in the comforting warmth. But you know this is not the final destination. The purpose of the bath is purification, and that requires a more intense trial. Feeling ready, you rise from the bench and follow a narrow, vaulted corridor that leads deeper into the heart of the complex. With every step you take, the air grows hotter, thicker, heavier. the temperature climbs with an alarming intensity. You can feel the heat radiating from the floor through the soles of your sandals. You are heading for the caldarium. You step through an archway and are hit by a wall of heat so profound it momentarily takes your breath away. This is the hot room, the furnace of the baths. The air is a thick, soupy fog of steam that limits visibility to only a few feet, and sweat instantly erupts on your entire body. The marble walls are slick with condensation, which runs down in small rivers to the floor. The vaulted ceiling above is a marvel of engineering, designed to be perfectly curved so that this condensation runs down the walls instead of dripping cold, unpleasant drops onto the bathers below. High above, small glassed windows allow shafts of light to cut through the steam, illuminating the swirling vapor in a way that is both heavenly and hellish. The sound in here is different. Voices are muffled and distorted by the steam, creating a disorienting, echoing effect. The primary sound is the hiss of steam and the constant drip of water. In one alcove, you see the alveus, a small, rectangular pool of steaming water, almost too hot to touch. Several men are soaking in it, their bodies nearly submerged, their faces red from the heat, as if they are being slowly toasted in a great communal cauldron. This extreme heat was believed to sweat out sickness and impurities from deep within the body. You spend several minutes in the searing, wet heat, allowing your body to sweat profusely. You feel as though you are being cleansed from the inside out, every pore open and breathing. You are now at the peak of the thermal experience, your body fully heated, your skin slick with a mixture of sweat and the steam of the caldarium. The preparation is complete. Now, the real work of getting clean, the Rowan way, can begin. It is time for the oil and the blade. You stand in the disorienting haze of the caldarium, your body radiating a heat so intense that the air around you seems to shimmer. Every pore on your skin is open, sweating freely, ready for the main event. You find a less crowded spot near one of the marble walls and retrieve your bathing kit, a small clay flask of olive oil, your ampulla, and the curved bronze scraper, the strigil. In this world without soap, these are the instruments of true cleanliness. You unstopper the flask and pour a generous amount of the green gold oil into your palm. It is simple, cheap oil, nothing like the expensive, perfumed concoctions used by the senators and equestrians. But its function is the same. You begin to rub it vigorously all over your body, covering your chest, your arms, your legs. The oil feels slick and heavy on your already sweaty skin, creating a thick, glistening sheen. Its purpose is not to moisturize, but to act as a solvent, a liquid magnet, to lift and bind every particle of dirt, grime, and dead skin that has been sweated out from your pores. You cover every part of yourself that you can reach, but you cannot do your own back. This necessitates another moment of casual, functional intimacy that defines the social world of the baths. You look around and see another man in the same situation. He is a soldier by the look of him. His body, a roadmap of old scars. You catch his eye and give a simple, questioning nod towards your strigil. He understands immediately and nods back. You approach, and without a word, he takes your flask and oils your back. You then return the favor. It is a simple, unspoken contract of mutual need. A moment of cooperation that transcends social status, built on the shared understanding of the ritual. Once you are thoroughly oiled, from head to toe, the real work begins. You take your strigil in hand. It is not a sharp blade for cutting, but its curved edge is firm enough to be effective. You place it against your forearm and pull down with a strong, steady pressure. The result is immediate and grotesquely satisfying. A thick, grayish-brown paste peels away from your skin, collecting in the hollow of the strigil's curve. This paste, A foul combination of oil, sweat, dirt, and dead skin cells is known as gleo. You flick it onto the floor with a practice motion, where it joins the residue of 100 other men, waiting to be washed away by a slave into the complex drainage system. You continue this process over your entire body, a methodical, vigorous act of exfoliation. You scrape your chest, your legs, your stomach. Each pull of the strigil reveals a new layer of clean, pink skin beneath. It is a rough, almost violent process, and it leaves your skin feeling raw and sensitive, but also cleaner than you have ever felt. This ritual was the absolute cornerstone of Roman hygiene and athletics. For them, cleanliness was not about pleasant smells. It was about the physical removal of impurity. This very glow you are scraping from your body was, in some contexts, a bizarrely valuable commodity. In the great gymnasiums and gladiatorial schools, the sweat and grime scraped from the bodies of famous athletes was a prized possession. Their slaves we carefully collected into small pots, or strigmenta, and sell it in the markets. Wealthy Roman women would buy this celebrity residue and use it as a face cream or a medicinal balm, believing that by applying it, they could absorb some of the athlete's vitality, strength, and virility. It was a strange and intimate connection to the heroes of the age. But you are no hero. You are just a common man. You finish scraping your body, your skin now red and tingling, sensitive to the hot, steamy air. You have been sweated, oiled, and scraped down to a new layer of yourself. Now, cleansed by fire and steam, you are ready for the final, shocking act of purification. You walk from the sweltering caldarium, through the pleasant warmth of the tepidarium, and into the vast, bright hall of the frigidarium. The change in temperature is dramatic. The air here is cool and fresh. You stand at the edge of the great, deep pool of cold water. Other men are laughing and shouting, their voices echoing in the immense space as they plunge in. The water is a startling, clear blue. The Roman medical philosophy believed that this sudden, violent transition from extreme heat to extreme cold was essential for good health. It was meant to shock the pores closed, trapping the body's internal heat, stimulating the circulation, and hardening the spirit against weakness and disease. The shock was not a side effect of the process. It was the entire point. You take a deep breath, steeling yourself for the impact, and descend the marble steps. The first touch of the water is an electric shock. It is a cold so intense it steals the air from your lungs and makes every muscle in your body seize. You hesitate for only a second before plunging in completely, submerging yourself in the icy water. For a moment, the world is a silent, blue, freezing chaos. You erupt from the surface, gasping, a great, involuntary shout escaping your lips. The shock is absolute, but as the initial cold gives way, a new sensation washes over you. A powerful, exhilarating wave of pure energy. Your skin tingles. Your mind feels sharp and clear. Your body, which was limp with heat and exhaustion, now feels light and powerful. You have been reborn. The bathing ritual is complete. You climb out of the pool, your body invigorated. The ordeal is over, but your day at the baths has only just begun. Now, the real purpose of your visit begins, to enter the great social maze. You emerge from the frigidarium, your skin tingling and alive, your mind sharp and clear. A slave hands you a series of clean, warm linen towels, and you dry yourself thoroughly. The ordeal of the bath is over. You have been sweated, scraped, and rinsed, and shocked into a state of profound well-being. But your day here has only just begun. You do not collect your clothes and go home. To do so would be to fundamentally misunderstand the purpose of the thermae. The bathing was merely the prelude. Now comes the main event. Dressed again in a simple, clean loincloth, you walk out of the main bathing hall, and into the sprawling, vibrant world of the bath complex. The first thing that hits you is the smell of food. The vigorous bathing process has stoked a ravenous fire in your belly, and the Romans, in their wisdom, provided for this. You find yourself in a bustling columned portico lined with small, open-fronted shops and stalls known as popinae. These were the fast food restaurants of the ancient world. The air is thick with the greasy, delicious smoke of grilling sausages, the sharp scent of fried fish, the sweet aroma of honey cakes, and the ever-present smell of warm bread. Vendors with voices honed by years of practice shout their wares over the din of the crowd. "Hot peas, boiled beans," cries one. "Sausages from Lucania, the best in Rome," bellows another. A boy with a tray weaves through the crowd, selling hard-boiled eggs and figs. It is a chaotic, tempting symphony of food. You approach a stall, and for another small coin, you buy a simple meal, a thick, fennel-spiced sausage, still sizzling from the grill, and a cup of cheap red wine, likely watered down but pleasantly cool. You find a seat on a stone bench and watch the world go by. This, as much as the bathing itself, is the essence of the Roman baths. For this was not just a place of health, but a place of commerce. As you eat your sausage, you observe the intricate dance of Roman society playing out all around you. You see a wealthy shipping magnate, his belly straining the fabric of his fine tunic, laughing as he closes a deal with another merchant over a shared bottle of wine. You see a lawyer, his face serious, quietly consulting with a client in a shaded corner, away from prying ears. The baths were the ancient world's unofficial business hub, its conference center, its golf course. The informal, relaxed atmosphere made it the perfect place to build relationships and conduct transactions away from the rigid formalities of the forum. Roman society ran on a complex system of patronage and personal connections, and the baths were the engine room where these connections were forged and maintained. A powerful senator, now fully dressed in his immaculate white toga with its broad purple stripe, holds court near a fountain. He is surrounded by a crowd of his clientes, poorer citizens who depend on his favor. They have come here to pay their respects, to ask for legal help or a small loan, to simply be seen in the presence of a powerful man. The senator listens, dispenses advice, and offers a word of encouragement, all while maintaining an air of effortless authority. This daily ritual reinforces the social glue that holds the Roman world together. You finish your meal and begin to wonder. The sheer scale of the amenities is staggering. You walk through a beautiful, manicured garden, its geometric flower beds and gravel paths offering a quiet respite from the noise. Here, men stroll in pairs, their heads close together, deep in conversation. You pass an open doorway and peer inside to see a large, quiet room lined with shelves holding hundreds of papyrus scrolls. It is one of the bath's two libraries, this one for Latin works, another on the opposite side for Greek. Scholars and students sit on benches, reading, their silence a stark contrast to the boisterous energy outside. In another hall, you see a small crowd gathered around a man on a pedestal, a poet reciting his latest ode, his voice rising and falling with dramatic flair. This was the Roman ideal of otium, or leisure. But it was not leisure as we know it, not simple idleness. It was a productive, civilized state of being, a time to be spent improving the mind, cultivating social bonds, and caring for the body. The baths were the ultimate expression of this ideal, a public gift that allowed every citizen to participate in the highest forms of Roman culture. Feeling your own mind now needs some sustenance, you turn away from the noisy popinae and the strolling crowds. You decide to find a quiet corner in the library yourself, to sit for a while with a scroll from the historian Livy. Your stomach is full, your body is clean, and now you will feed your mind. This is the promise of the Babs. This is the glory of Rome. Leaving the bustling porticos and the tempting smells of the food stalls behind, you walk towards a quieter, more stately wing of the immense complex. The sounds of shouting vendors and splashing water fade, replaced by a hushed reverence. You pass through a tall archway flanked by magnificent, larger-than-life statues of Apollo and Minerva, the god of the arts and the goddess of wisdom. Their presence marks your entry into a different kind of space. This is the intellectual and cultural heart of the Babs. You enter the library. The air here is cool and dry, smelling of papyrus, cedarwood oil, and the dust of ages. It is a sanctuary of silence in the heart of the city's noisiest institution. The library is vast, a long hall with a high, coffered ceiling. Along the walls, great wooden cabinets or armoria are filled with hundreds, perhaps thousands, of papyrus scrolls, each one with a small, dangling parchment tag, a syllabus, indicating its title and author. You see two distinct sections, as was common in the great Roman libraries. One for the great works of Latin literature, Virgil, Ovid, Cicero, Livy, and another, equally large, for the Greek masters, Homer, Plato, and Thucydides. The inclusion of public libraries within the great imperial baths was a profound statement of imperial power and benevolence. Pioneered by emperors like Trajan, these libraries were intended to rival the Great Library of Alexandria. They declared that Rome was not just a military power, but the new center of the intellectual world. By making these texts available to any citizen who could read, the emperors fostered a shared cultural identity and reinforced the idea of a golden age under their rule. You are a humble potter, but here you have access to the same knowledge as a senator. You select a heavy scroll, Livy's History of Rome, from its shelf and find a seat on a quiet bench in a reading alcove. You carefully untie the leather straps and begin to unroll the papyrus with your left hand, rolling up the read portion with your right. The work is slow, deliberate, requiring both hands and full concentration. You read of the heroes of the early republic, of Cincinnatus at his Plam, of Horatius at the bridge. You lose yourself in the grand sweep of your city's history, a quiet scholar in a temple of words. For an hour, you are at peace, participating in the high-minded ideal of odium, or civilized leisure. But eventually, you must leave this quiet island and re-enter the chaotic ocean outside. You carefully roll the scroll, tie it, and return it to its proper place. As you step back out of the library and into the main halls of the complex, the reality of the baths crashes over you once more. The noise. The Roman philosopher Seneca the Younger, who was unfortunate enough to live in an apartment directly above a bathhouse, left behind a vivid and exasperated account of the sheer cacophony. His letters paint a picture not of serene relaxation, but of a relentless assault on the ears. As you stand there, you can almost hear what he described. From the palestra, you hear the grunts and straining groans of the weightlifters, accompanied by the sharp, metallic clang of the weights being dropped. You hear the frantic shouts of the ball players as they call out scores or argue a point. From a nearby massage room, you hear the loud, percussive slap of the masseur's hands on a client's oiled back. And then there is the most distinctive sound of all, the high-pitched, screeching voice of the elliptilus, the hair plucker, as he advertises his services. A sound only punctuated by the yelps of his unfortunate customers. It was, Seneca wrote, a level of noise that would test the nerves of a stoic saint. And where there is noise and crowds, there is vice. You walk past a secluded, columned alcove and see the scene that so infuriated moralists like the poet Martial. A group of men are huddled together, their faces a mixture of greed and desperation, casting dice onto a makeshift table. Gambling was officially illegal within the baths, but the rule was almost impossible to enforce, and guards were easily bribed to look the other way. The low, tense muttering of the gamblers is suddenly broken by a roar of anger as one man accuses another of cheating. A fight breaks out, a messy, clumsy scuffle of flailing limbs before being quickly broken up by the bathhouse attendants. Further on, in the shaded porticos near the gardens, you see other transactions taking place. You see elegantly dressed but low-status women, prostitutes or meretrices, strolling with a practiced, confident air. They laugh and exchange witty remarks with potential clients, negotiating a price for their services as openly as a merchant might negotiate the price of olives. For them, the baths were the city's premier marketplace for desire. You have now seen the full spectrum of Roman life contained within these walls. You have witnessed high philosophy and low gambling, art and arguments, cleanliness and crime. You have seen the very best and the very worst of the city, all mingling in the steam. You have seen the world of men in all its complex, contradictory glory. But as you watch a group of wealthy matrons pass by, accompanied by their slaves, you realize you have only seen half the story. You have seen the baths as Lucius, the potter. You have experienced the casual camaraderie and the public business of the men's world. But to leave it there would be to ignore half the population of the empire. So let us leave Lucius to his reading and step into another life. Imagine now that you are not a man. You are Aurelia, the wife of a baker. The sun is in the morning sky. Your husband is at his ovens, and you are heading for your daily ritual. For a Roman woman, the trip to the baths was, in many ways, even more important than it was for a man. In a deeply patriarchal society, where the lives of most women were centered on the home, the baths were one of the few acceptable arenas for public social life. They were an escape, a lifeline, a community. The first and most important distinction was segregation. Men and women, for the most part, bathed separately. In the largest, most luxurious imperial thermae, this was achieved with entirely separate, though often smaller and less opulent, bathing wings for women. These would have their own changing rooms, their own palaestra, their own path of heat. But a far more common solution, particularly in the hundreds of smaller neighborhood bathhouses, the balnea, was separation by time. The baths would typically be open for women from dawn until the 7th or 8th hour, around midday or 2 p.m. At that point, the women would be expected to leave, the baths would be cleaned, and they would reopen for the men for the rest of the afternoon and evening. As you, Aurelia, enter the balnea during these morning hours, the atmosphere is immediately different from the men's section. It is just as noisy, just as crowded, but the character of the noise is different. You hear the high-pitched laughter of women, the sharp cries of children playing by the pools, and the constant, buzzing hum of conversation. This is the Roman Woman's Forum. Here, there is no talk of politics or military campaigns. The conversations are about the price of wool in the market, a neighbor's scandalous affair, the arrangement of a marriage for a daughter, or the sharing of a new recipe for honey cakes. It is a powerful, informal network of information, a place where reputations are made and unmade, and where the social fabric of the neighborhood is woven and rewoven every single day. You meet your friends in the changing room, and the anxieties are the same. You worry about your clothes being stolen while you bathe, and you gossip about the wealthy matron who can afford 2 slaves just to watch her robes. You then proceed through the same bathing ritual as the men. You might exercise in the palaestra, though the activities are often less strenuous, perhaps a game of catch or some light gymnastics. You sweat in the tepidarium, sharing secrets with your closest friends on the warm marble benches. You endure the heat of the caldarium and scrape your skin clean with your strigil and scented oil. It is in the details that the experience differs. The oils used here are more likely to be perfumed with rose, lavender, or jasmine. After the final cold plunge, the work of hairstyling begins. Elaborate hairstyles were a crucial status symbol for Roman women, and wealthy matrons would have their slave hairdressers, the ornatresses, spend hours weaving intricate braids and curls, using combs of ivory and pins of polished silver. For a common woman like you, it is simply a chance to comb out your wet hair and gossip while you do it. While Roman society at large was restrictive, the baths offered women a unique degree of freedom and bodily autonomy. It was a space run by and for women. Here, they could speak their minds, forge alliances, and simply exist outside the direct supervision of their fathers and husbands. It was a vital, often overlooked part of their daily existence. As midday approaches, you know your time is coming to an end. You can hear the attendants beginning the process of cleaning the pools, preparing for the arrival of the men. You gather your children, finish your conversations, and get dressed. As you leave the baths, you might see the first of the men arriving for their turn. Your husband, perhaps, his own workday now finished. You exchange a brief nod as you pass. You have each inhabited the same space, the same building. But you have experienced two very different worlds. And so the two halves of Rome complete their daily ritual in these parallel universes of steam and marble. The citizen, whether male or female, has been cleansed, refreshed, and reintegrated into the social fabric of the city. They have seen the baths as they were meant to be seen. A gift, a paradise, a triumph of civilization. But we have not yet seen the whole truth. We have explored every corner of the world of light. Now, we must go back down into the darkness to understand the true price of all this splendor. You have seen the baths as they were meant to be seen. You have experienced the citizen's ritual of exercise and cleansing, the vibrant social life, the cultural offerings, and the casual vices. You have seen the world of men and the world of women, two streams of Roman life flowing through the same magnificent structure. But beneath the warm marble floors and steaming pools lies another world, a world no citizen ever saw or ever wanted to see. To truly understand the baths, we must go there. So let us leave the perspective of the bather behind. Let us descend down narrow, winding stone stairs into the guts of the great machine. Imagine now your life is not one of leisure. You are not here by choice. You are property. You are a slave, and your world is the hypocaust. You do not know the sun. Your reality is a labyrinth of brick and stone, a subterranean city of perpetual twilight built directly beneath the magnificent halls above. The air you breathe is not the perfumed steam of the caldarium. It is a thick, gritty soup of wood smoke, ash, and soot that coats the back of your throat and makes every breath a conscious, painful effort. The only light comes from the terrifying, incandescent orange mouths of the Praefurnia, the massive furnaces that line the walls of this central chamber. Their hungry glow casts long, dancing shadows, painting the soot-blackened walls and the skeletal figures of your fellow slaves in a demonic light. The only sound is the constant, deafening roar of the fires, a sound so loud it makes thought impossible, punctuated by the wet, rattling coughs that are the shared language of every man in this pit. Your shift begins with a sharp, barking command in coarse Latin. It is Crixus, the overseer. He is a freedman, a former slave himself, a man whose small taste of authority has made him exceptionally cruel. He carries a long wooden rod, not just as a symbol, but as a tool he uses with frequency and relish. More wood for furnace 7, he bellows, his voice hoarse from shouting over the din. The water in the caldarium is not yet at a boil. Do you want me to report to the master that you are lazy? The threat hangs in the air. A bad report means a whipping or worse. Your job is simple, brutal, and endless. You are a stoker. You feed the fires. You join a line of other slaves at a massive pile of wood that fills a cavernous side chamber. Drop down a chute from the world above. Your only connection to that other universe. The logs are heavy, often green and full of sap, which makes them smoke and spit. You grab an armful, the rough bark digging into the old burn scars that cover your arms and chest. Your body is a testament to the dangers of this place. You shuffle towards Furnace 7, its mouth a perfect arch of brick, glowing with a heat so intense it feels like it is peeling the skin from your face. The roar from within is a physical presence. You avert your eyes, shielding them with your arm, and heave the logs deep into the inferno. They are consumed instantly, disappearing into the white-hot core with a great whoosh. The furnace, a greedy and insatiable god, has been fed, but it is never satisfied. The logistics of heating a complex like this were staggering. A large bathhouse like the Babs of Caracalla could burn through more than 10 tons of wood every single day. This ravenous consumption led to the progressive deforestation of the hills and mountains around Rome. Entire forests were felled and transported to the city by legions of other slaves, all to feed these furnaces. The men who worked here in the Hypocaust were often prisoners of war, strong men from Germania, Dacia, or Gaul, their lives forfeit to the glory of the empire. Their life expectancy was brutally short. The constant inhalation of soot and toxic fumes led to chronic, fatal lung diseases. The intense heat caused constant dehydration, and the sheer physical toll of the work meant that bodies simply gave out. In the eyes of the Roman state, these slaves were not people. They were a consumable resource, a part of the heating system, as disposable as the wood they carried. You turn back for another load. The cycle is endless. Lift, carry, heave, return. Your world is reduced to these 4 actions. You do not see the sky. You do not feel the rain. You do not see the magnificent marble halls or the laughing, oil-scraped bodies of the Roman citizens enjoying the fruits of your labor, just a few feet above your head. Sometimes, through the thick stone and brick ceiling, you can hear the faint, muffled echoes of their world. A distant shout of laughter from the palaestra, the great splash of a senator diving into the frigidarium. The sounds are alien, like messages from another universe. They are the sounds of a paradise you are powering, but will never see. You are the ghost in the machine, living and dying in the fiery darkness, just a few feet beneath their warm, clean feet. The hours bleed into one another, a long, indistinguishable river of heat, labor, and pain. Your shift does not end by the setting of a sun you cannot see. It ends with the arrival of other men, their faces as grim and as soot-stained as your own, who emerge from a dark tunnel to take your place. There is no friendly exchange, no words of encouragement. You simply drop your last load of wood, and they step forward to begin theirs. The great machine never stops. You and the other slaves from your shift stumble away from the roaring furnaces, your bodies moving with the slow, aching gait of the utterly depleted. You retreat into a different section of the subterranean maze, a series of side tunnels where the heat is less a direct searing assault and more a constant, suffocating blanket. This is your home. There are no rooms, no private spaces. The living quarters are simply wider sections of the tunnel. The stone floor covered with thin, greasy piles of rags that serve as communal beds. The air here is just as thick with soot, but it carries another smell as well. The sour scent of unwashed, exhausted bodies. You collapse onto your designated pile of rags, your muscles trembling, your lungs burning with every breath. There is no privacy here, no dignity. You sleep, eat, and exist in a heap with the other men. your miseries mingling in the oppressive darkness. Soon the overseer, Crixus, arrives, not with his rod, but with two other slaves carrying a heavy wooden bucket and a sack. This is the evening meal. There are no bowls, no utensils. One of the slaves reaches into the sack and pulls out lumps of dark, incredibly dense bread, tossing one to each man. This is panis sordidus, dirty bread, the lowest grade of food imaginable, made from coarse bran and whatever floor sweepings were available. It is heavy, hard to chew, and tastes of dirt and despair. The other slave ladles a foul-smelling liquid from the bucket into crude wooden cups. It is not wine. It is posca, a mixture of sour wine or vinegar and water, the common drink of soldiers and slaves. It is sharp and acidic, but it quenches the terrible thirst that a day in front of the furnaces creates. The Roman logistical machine, even in its cruelty, was efficient. Slaves performing such hard labor required a minimum caloric intake to function, and these rations were often scientifically calculated for maximum output at minimum cost. The bread provided cheap carbohydrates for energy, while the acidic posca was a mild antiseptic, a way to make the questionable water sources of the underworks slightly safer to drink. It was not nourishment. It was fuel management for human machinery. You eat in silence, gnawing on the hard bread, your throat raw. You look at the men around you. They are a mosaic of the empire's conquests. There is a towering blonde-haired German captured in a forest skirmish, who still looks bewildered by this world of brick and fire. There is a wiry, dark-eyed Dacian with intricate tattoos on his arms, a former warrior now reduced to this. There are Gauls, Britons, Syrians. Most of you do not even share a common language. Your only bond is the shared experience of this living hell. There are no friendships here, only temporary, unspoken alliances of survival. You might share a sip of your posca with the man next to you if he is choking on his bread, not out of kindness, but because you know you might need him to drag you away from a furnace if you collapse tomorrow. You see the silent hierarchies, the older, more hardened slaves who have learned how to conserve every ounce of energy, and the new arrivals who work with a frantic, wasteful terror and who you know will not last more than a few months. You finish your bread and your posca. There is nothing else. No conversation, no leisure. The only thing to do is to lie back on your pile of rags and try to find a few precious hours of sleep before your next shift begins. As you lie there, you can still feel the immense, vibrating heat from the main furnaces through the stone floor beneath you. You can still hear their constant, distant roar. There is no escape. Your time off is not a reprieve. It is just a different part of the prison. You close your eyes, but the image of the glowing furnace mouth is burned onto the inside of your eyelids. You know that even in your dreams, you will still be in the dark, still coughing up ash, still feeding the fire. The sleep you get is not rest. It is a shallow, fitful state of unconsciousness, haunted by the constant roar of the furnaces and punctuated by your own hacking coughs. You do not wake naturally to the gentle light of dawn. You are woken by the jarring impact of a wooden rod striking the stone floor inches from your head. You bolt upright, your heart instantly hammering with fear. The overseer Crixus stands over you, his silhouette a hulking shape against the distant glow of a furnace. The sun is risen in the world above, he snarls, and so do the worms in this pit. To the fires. The transition from non-rest to labor is instantaneous and violent. You scramble to your feet, your body a constellation of dull aches and sharp pains. You join the other slaves of your shift as they shuffle towards the main furnace chamber. But as you gather, you notice a man on the floor who is not getting up. It is an older Dacian, a man with faded tattoos on his arms, who you have worked alongside for months. He is not sleeping. He is convulsing, his body seized by a violent, rattling cough that shakes his entire frame. He is in the final stages of the lung sickness. In this world, it is a death sentence. There is no infirmary in the Hypocaust. There are no healers, no medicine. Roman physicians, like the famous Galen, wrote extensively on the complexities of the human body, but their knowledge and care were reserved for those whose bodies were considered a valuable investment: wealthy citizens, important soldiers, and expensive gladiators. For the lowest class of industrial slaves, whose bodies were seen as consumable fuel for the imperial machine, there was virtually no medical care. A slave who could no longer work had lost their entire economic value and was therefore no longer worth the cost of their meager rations. The lung sickness, likely a brutal combination of pneumonia, silicosis from the constant inhalation of ash, and tuberculosis that thrived in the close, damp quarters, was the inevitable end for most who worked in the pits. Crixus strides over to where the Dacian lies. He nudges the man's shivering body with the toe of his sandal. "Up, dog," he says, his voice devoid of any emotion. The man only responds with another wet, racking cough, a thin trickle of dark blood appearing at the corner of his mouth. The overseer stares down at him for a long moment. You do not see a flicker of pity in his eyes. You see only cold, brutal calculation. He is assessing an asset. He is looking at a tool that has broken. "Useless," Crixus mutters to himself. He then turns to you and another slave, a large German. "You two, get him out of here. Take him to the far tunnel." A far tunnel is a place you all know of but never go. It is a dead-end passage, far from the main work area, where the dying are left so they do not infect the healthy or get in the way of the work. It is a place to be forgotten. You and the German move to obey. You each take one of the Dacian's thin arms and lift him. He is shockingly light, a bag of bones held together by a fragile, feverish skin. He is still breathing, his wheezing gasps loud in your ear. You drag him away from the sleeping area, his bare feet scraping along the soot-covered floor. He is too weak to protest, too sick to even open his eyes. You carry him down the dark, unused tunnel. The air here is cooler, but it smells of damp and decay. You deposit him on the cold stone floor as instructed. There is no blanket, no water. You are simply leaving him to die alone in the dark. As you turn to leave, you look back at his small, shivering form, a piece of human refuse being discarded by the great Roman machine. And as you look at him, you see your own future. This is not a possibility, it is a certainty. The same soot that fills his lungs is filling yours with every breath you take. The only variable is time. How many months? How many years before you are the one lying on this cold floor, your breath a wet rattle, waiting for the end? You feel your own chest, the familiar tightness, the ever-present cough that you can never quite clear from your throat. You return to the main chamber. Crixus points his rod at you. You work the Dacian station now as well as your own. The fires are low. Move. You pick up your first load of wood for the new shift, your body trembling with a new kind of fear. It is not the fear of the whip or the fire. It is the cold, certain, grinding fear of the inevitable. The work is no longer just about enduring the heat for another day. It is about enduring the slow, certain poisoning of your own body, and knowing with every breath that you are one step closer to your own quiet end in a dark, forgotten tunnel. The memory of the sky becomes a new form of torture, a private ghost that haunts you in the perpetual twilight of the tunnels. The clean, cold rain on your face, the vast, swirling gray clouds. These images are now seared into your mind. They are a constant, silent reminder of the world you have lost, a world that exists just a few feet above your head, but is as unattainable as the heavens. The brief moment of beauty has sharpened the edges of your suffering, making the heat feel hotter, the air thicker, and the darkness more complete. You fall back into the brutal, mindless rhythm of the work, your body a machine running on fumes and fear. Lift, carry, heave, return. You are a ghost, haunting a machine of flesh and bone. This grim peace, this numbness you have cultivated as a shield, is shattered one afternoon by a break in the routine. A thick, black smoke begins to billow back down from one of the ventilation shafts, choking the already foul air of the furnace room. One of the soot chutes is blocked. Crixus. The overseer bellows in fury, his face red with anger as he inspects the problem. The shaft is narrow, too narrow for a large man to climb. His eyes scan the assembled slaves, and they land on you. You are one of the smaller, wirier men on the shift. You, he barks, pointing his rod. Up, clear it. He leads you to the base of a vertical shaft, a narrow brick chimney that vises into absolute blackness. Iron rungs, slick with soot and grime, are hammered into the wall. This is a climb into the unknown. You place your hands and feet on the rungs and begin your ascent. The journey upwards is a suffocating, claustrophobic ordeal. The shaft is barely wide enough for your shoulders, and the darkness is total. The air is thick with old, greasy soot that you inhale with every breath, a fine powder that coats your tongue and throat. It rains down on you from above as you climb, getting in your eyes, matting your hair. You climb in silence, the only sound your own ragged breathing and the scrape of your feet on the iron rungs. These service shafts were an essential but forgotten part of the bath's architecture. While citizens marveled at the grand arches and domes, a complex network of ventilation and disposal chutes ran through the walls like arteries, requiring constant maintenance by a workforce that was meant to be neither seen nor heard. After what feels like an eternity, you see it, a faint, impossibly distant circle of gray light. Hope, an emotion you thought you had murdered long ago, stirs painfully in your chest. You climb faster, your movements now fueled by a desperate, forgotten longing. You reach the top and find a heavy iron grate blocking the way. You push against it with all your might. It resists, then gives way with a screech of rusted metal. You pull yourself up and out, and you are reborn into a world you thought you had lost forever. You emerge into a small, hidden service courtyard, open to the elements. The first thing that hits you is the air. It is cold, it is clean, and it is wet with a fine, misty drizzle. You take a deep, shuddering breath, and the clean air is a shock to your system. Your soot-clogged lungs seize, and you collapse to your knees, overcome by a violent coughing fit that leaves you gasping on the wet cobblestones. When the coughing subsides, you look up. The sky, it is not a concept. It is not a memory. It is real. It is a vast, limitless ceiling of swirling gray clouds. It is the most beautiful, most heartbreaking thing you have ever seen. The sheer open space above you is a physical blow, a stark contrast to the crushing, claustrophobic confines of your tunnel world. You feel the cool, clean rain on your face, each drop a tiny, merciful blessing, washing away the layers of grime. You see the top of one of the bath's great marble walls, the stone darkened by rain. You hear the muted, distant sounds of the city. This moment of pure sensory bliss is the most exquisite torture you have ever endured. It is a reminder of everything it means to be alive. everything it means to be free. It is the memory of a world you can never have again. What are you waiting for, worm? Crixus's voice, bellowing from the bottom of the chute, shatters the moment. The spell is broken. You are not a man feeling the rain on his face. You are a slave with a job to do. You crawl to the opening of the chute and see the blockage, a large, messy bird's nest mixed with built-up soot. You tear it apart with your bare hands, shoving the debris down the shaft. The work takes less than a minute. Your task is done. You are now expected to voluntarily leave this small patch of heaven and descend back into hell. You take one last look at the sky. You try to burn the image of the gray clouds into your memory, a final treasure for the long darkness ahead. Then you place your feet back on the rungs and begin your descent. You are climbing down from the world. With every rung you take, a light fades, the clean air vanishes, and the familiar heat and stench rise to meet you. You emerge back into the fiery twilight of the furnace room. Crixus grunts, satisfied, and shoves you back towards your post. You pick up a load of wood, your movements slow, your mind numb. The glimpse of the world has not given you hope. It has only given you a clearer, more painful understanding of the cage you are in. You have seen what you are missing, and the knowledge is a fresh, raw wound that you know will never heal. The fires in the hypocausts went out in the 6th century, but the buildings themselves remained. Too large to be easily torn down, too magnificent to be ignored. The great Roman baths stood as hollowed-out mountains of brick and marble in a city that was rapidly changing around them. They became silent monuments to a lost world of public grandeur, waiting for a new purpose in a new, more fractured age. Their afterlife would be one of plunder, adaptation, and eventual ruin. The first stage was that of a great open-air quarry. For the people of medieval and Renaissance Rome, these ancient structures were not history to be preserved. They were a convenient and free source of high-quality, pre-cut building materials. For centuries, gangs of workers, known as calcari or lime burners, swarmed over the ruins. They pried the precious marble cladding from the walls, shattered the beautiful statues, and burned them in kilns to create lime for the mortar needed to build new churches and palaces. They stripped the lead from the plumbing to be melted down for roofs and pipes. They tore out the massive bronze doors and fixtures to be repurposed or sold. The baths were systematically cannibalized, their beauty and artistry sacrificed for the raw materials that lay within. What could not be easily burned or melted down was repurposed. The core structures of brick and concrete were so massive and so well engineered that they became the foundations of a new medieval world. Powerful Roman families, like the Frangipani and the Orsini, seized control of the ruins, fortifying them and turning them into private castles during the violent factional warfare that plagued the city. The Baths of Caracalla, once a symbol of public unity, became a fortress in a private war. The Colosseum suffered a similar fate. In other areas, the vast echoing halls were walled off, their grand arches bricked up, and they were transformed into squalid housing for the poor. The magnificent chambers that once hosted senators and poets became dark, crowded tenements. The open-air palaestras, as centuries of dirt and debris washed over them, became common pastures where shepherds grazed their sheep and goats amongst the fallen marble columns. For the people of the Middle Ages, these colossal Roman ruins were a source of both awe and fear. They were often seen as the work of giants or even demons, not of mortal men. They were believed to be haunted places, filled with the ghosts of pagans. The act of quarrying a Roman bath to build a new church was often seen as a righteous and symbolic act, a way of sanctifying a pagan structure, taking its strength and its very stones and dedicating it to the glory of the new Christian God. In a very literal sense, the churches of medieval Rome rose from the bones of the ancient city's public life. Some structures found a more direct path to sanctification. In the 16th century, Pope Pius IV commissioned the great Michelangelo to transform the central hall of the Baths of Diocletian, the former Tepidarium and Frigidarium, into a church. This became the Basilica of Santa Maria degli Angeli e dei Martiri, Saint Mary of the Angels and the Martyrs. It stands today as one of the most stunning examples of architectural repurposing in the world. A Christian church built inside the soaring, vaulted skeleton of a pagan Roman bath. For centuries, the parts of the baths that were not fortified or converted were simply left to the elements. Nature began to reclaim them. Ivy crept over the massive brick walls. Wildflowers grew in the cracked mosaic floors. Trees took root in the atriums. They became the romantic, overgrown ruins that so captivated the artists and poets of the 18th and 19th centuries, a picturesque symbol of the fleeting nature of greatness. And so, after centuries of being used as a quarry, a fortress, a church, and a farm, the baths entered their final stage, becoming a monument to a lost world. But when we walk through these magnificent ruins today, what do we truly see? What is the final legacy of these silent giants? So what do we see when we walk through the colossal ruins of the Baths of Caracalla or Diocletian today? We see more than just a tourist attraction, more than just a testament to a fallen empire. We see a perfect metaphor for Rome itself, an institution that embodied both its greatest virtues and its most terrible flaws. On one hand, the baths represent a level of civic-mindedness and public investment that has rarely been matched in human history. They were a profound statement that every citizen, regardless of their wealth, deserved a place of beauty, health, and community. The engineering that powered them, the aqueducts that carried water for miles, the hypocaust systems that heated entire city blocks, was nothing short of genius. The integration of libraries, art galleries, and gardens into these public spaces speaks to a culture that, at its best, truly valued the enrichment of the mind as much as the cleansing of the body. In this light, the baths are a symbol of a golden age, a testament to a civilization that believed in the power and importance of a shared public life. This was the Rome of law, of order, of art, of philosophy. But as we have seen, another world existed just beneath the surface, a world that was deliberately hidden from view. For every citizen enjoying a warm bath, there was a slave choking on soot in the darkness below. For every pleasant heated floor, there was a roaring furnace demanding to be fed. The entire magnificent edifice of Roman leisure, with its libraries and its gardens, was built upon a foundation of the most brutal and expendable form of human labor. The beautiful, clean water that filled the frigidarium was, in a way, paid for by the sweat and blood of the men who toiled in the hypocaust. The freedom of the Roman citizen to enjoy his odium was directly subsidized by the total lack of freedom of the slave. This was the other Rome, a Rome of conquest, of casual cruelty, and of a social structure that viewed vast swathes of humanity as little more than property, as tools to be used, broken, and discarded without a second thought. In the end, the Roman baths are the story of these two cities, these two Romes, existing in the same space but in different realities. One is a city of light, marble, and civilized discourse. The other is a city of darkness, fire, and silent suffering. The tragedy, and perhaps the genius, of the Roman system was its ability to keep these two worlds so perfectly separate that the citizen in the sunlit garden never had to think about the slave in the fiery tunnel just beneath his feet. To truly understand the baths, and perhaps any great empire, is to understand this paradox. It is to admire the breathtaking scale of the architecture while acknowledging the human cost of its construction. It is to appreciate the democratic ideal of a space open to all, while remembering the enslaved workforce that made it function. It is to walk through the silent, majestic ruins today and to try, in the quiet moments, to hear two things at once: the faint, distant echo of a poet reciting his verse in a sunlit hall, and the even fainter, ghostly roar of the furnaces and the men who fed the flames. A civilization of two rivers, one of light and one of darkness, flowing from the same imperial source. It is perhaps the most enduring legacy of Rome. At its greatest achievements were so often inseparable from its greatest cruelties. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the real world of the Roman baths. They were more than just pools. They were the heart of a civilization, a stage where every aspect of Roman life, from the highest culture to the deepest suffering, played out every single day. If you enjoy these deep dives that look beyond the myths to find the complex truths of the past, please take a moment to support the channel. Leaving a like on the video is the best way to help us grow. And be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next exploration. And now, I'd love to hear from you. Let me know in the comments, what aspect of the Roman baths surprised you the most? The sheer scale of the luxury available to the public, or the brutal reality of the unseen world that powered it all? Thank you again for your time. Until our next journey to the past, sleep well.